Imagine a poison fog so thick that at times you struggle to see your own hands. A fog so toxic that it burns your throat just to breathe. Poison in the air, not dropped from enemy planes, but rising from the chimneys of your own steel town. Today we're talking about the day that the air itself turned into a killer. Welcome back to the Encyclopedia Ange channel, where if you have all the questions, you're in good company. In Donora, Pennsylvania, in October 1948, the air itself turned into a silent killer. At that time, Donora was a small steel town of about 14,000 people. Like many towns along the Monongahela River, it lived and breathed industry. Two companies, the American Steel and Wire Plant and the Donora Zinc Works, kept the town's economy alive, and also coated it in a nice, consistent layer of soot. Back then, no one really worried about air pollution. It was just the smell of progress. If your laundry came off the clothesline gray, that meant jobs. That meant that the mill was running. But on October 27th, a thick fog rolled into the valley. Now, fog wasn't unusual in Donora. It sat low in a river valley, and autumn was peak fog season. But this one didn't move. A weather phenomenon had trapped a lid of warm air high above the valley, sealing in the colder air below and everything in it, which meant every puff of smoke, every particle of dust, and every sulfur-laden fume from the mills just stayed. By the next morning, the fog was so thick that drivers had to steer with their heads out of their windows. They were unable to escape because they couldn't see to drive out. Inside homes, it was no better. People were coughing violently, wheezing, and struggling to catch their breath. Donora's doctors were overwhelmed, and they were seeing a pattern. The old, the very young, and anyone with asthma or heart trouble were getting dangerously sick and fast. But the mills, they didn't shut down. Not yet. Production kept going, pumping out a cocktail of lung-shredding chemicals. Trapped in this inversion, this created a poisonous blanket over the entire town. By Friday, October 29th, the hospitals were overflowing. People collapsed in the streets. Farmers found their livestock dead in the fields. Ambulances were running non-stop. And this was 1948, so we're talking old-school hearses doubling as ambulances. Within 5 days, 20 people were dead. Hundreds more were seriously ill. Nearly half of the town's population struggled to breathe. Even then, officials hesitated to call it what it was, a public health disaster caused by industrial pollution. The official line was, "Oh, it's just the weather." Finally, on Sunday, October 31st, a rainstorm rolled through and winds picked up. The inversion broke, the smog lifted, and Donora's streets slowly came back into view. But for many, the damage was already done. Over the following weeks, more people died from lingering complications, bringing the unofficial death toll closer to 70. Scientists said that the permanent damage to residents' lungs mirrored that of soldiers exposed to poison gas in war. This was one of the first times in U.S. history that people made a direct link between industrial emissions and human death. The Donora death smog became a turning point. By the 1950s and 60s, studies from Donora were being used to argue for clean air regulations. And in 1970, more than 2 decades after the smog, the U.S. passed the Clean Air Act. Today, Donora is quieter. The mills are all gone. There's even a smog museum dedicated to remembering those 5 deadly days in 1948. So if you ever catch yourself thinking that a little pollution is just the price of progress, remember Donora, the town that proved that the price can be far too steep. There's always a question to be answered, and I'm always here to ask it. See you next time.